This is VCD 2541, Unit 5, Production Log Number 2. Michael Kotis reporting. Project that I'm working on is called Mandible Island Match 3 game. Last week I explained how I was in the process of working on developing the look and feel of the game menus. A good term for that would be skinning. I didn't use that term last week, but I've since thought about it, and I think it's a good description of what I'm actually doing. I'm just kind of getting the graphics to look the way I want, customizing them to conform to the theme of the game. So I'm going to pick up where I left off last week. And last week I kind of ended with some problems that I was having that I really just discovered while I was demonstrating what I was doing. So what I'm going to do is just start an older build from last week. Okay, so the thing that I discovered last week is that I was working on the functionality of these option buttons, and the music turning on and off and the raising and lowering of the volume, also with the sound effects, is all controlled by a script from something called Mobile Menu Kit, which is what I'm using, all based on scripting. But then I realized that every time that I quit the game with the music off or the sound effects off, the buttons would get out of sync. So now when I restarted the game, the buttons, the music is off, but the on button is here, because the Playmaker state machine, when the game started, it started at the beginning, and the first state, the button is on. So now we have it out of sync. When I press this button, it still functions. The music goes on, but now it's in the off. Now the off button is showing, but the music is on. So it gets all out of whack. And I tried a lot of different things. I experimented with all sorts of things to try to get this to work. So what I ended up having to do, I played with the state machine, I played with the bools, I tried to attach different game objects and game managers to the music on-off button, but ultimately the solution that I found was the quit button. So I have a quit button, and the quit button has a script attached to it that on click there's a quit manager, and that's a script which makes the game quit. But what I also ended up doing is for the effects button, sound effects button, and the music effects button, I also attached some functionality where under the options menu I have a command that says update music volume and update effects volume. So I tried several different commands here before I hit upon that one. So it's the update music volume, update effects volume, which is what fixed it. So what that ends up doing is that it, right upon hitting the quit button, it resets all the options to default. And since the default is that the sound is on, when I restart the game again, the buttons are back in sync. Okay, I'm going to start up the newest build and see that the options will go back to default upon quit. And then when I restart, the music will be back on, which is the default state of the music. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and quit, start up again, and play. And when I go back to the options menu, the music should be back on, and it should be in sync with the button images. There it is. Okay, so it works the same for the sound effects. Okay, so that problem is solved, and that took a long time to understand what was happening, why it was happening, and to come up with a solution that worked. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is move on to the profiles menu, which is something I was also working on. I'm going to show you the build from last time so we can see where we left it, and then I'll go into the newest build and show you the progress. Okay, so if I go to profiles, this is the way I had left it last week. I was having a little problem with aligning the dagger along this slider area. There's something about aligning game objects in this in the menu kit that they don't seem to align this when I'm aligning the objects and I'm positioning them and I go to preview the game, they're not quite right. When I adjust them to work well in the preview, then in the build they sometimes aren't aligned. So I'm really not sure why that is, and it's taken a lot of just trial and error to get this right. So I did get this fixed. So this little gap here was something that was not that you'd think it would be very simple to fix, but it wasn't. And then another problem that I was having, or I wouldn't say it was a problem, but something that I was still working on trying to understand, is how to get these sprite images that are creating the color bars on the profile menu, how to get these sprite images to customize and replace them with my own. So what I had initially done, as in this first one, is this is a sprite that I created, and I went in and just replaced the image of the game object from the image that was in there as a default to my new image. It was named something different. This one stuck, but other ones did not. So what would happen is I would go ahead and I would replace the images that were given, and when I would start the game, the menu script would run and it would get the old images. So the old images were being found by the script, and it was just ignoring or replacing as the game was running, or even as the preview was running, it was replacing my images with the default. So that is something that I did solve, and I'll show you in a minute. And I'm still working on the typography, but I haven't figured that out yet exactly. But just getting everything else to be the way I want is something that's taken me a while. So let's try a couple other things. If I go ahead and try to discard a profile. So I click on a profile and I hit the discard button. I get this big clunky are you sure menu. I'm going to say no. And also to create a new profile, I also get a big clunky menu as well. So that's something else that I worked on. Skinning, we'll say. Let me cancel that. Another thing to keep in mind too is that, when I click on a profile, so the default color of the profile is blue. When I click on that profile, it will turn it green because that is the active profile. It's the one that I'm acting on, so I could discard it if I want to. So that's something that it was important that I got the figured out how to permanently replace these sprites with my own custom sprites so that I can retain that functionality. So I'll go ahead and quit. What I'm going to do now is show you the progress that I have made on this Profiles menu. Okay, so here we are. So now the dagger is aligned properly with that slider area. My sprites have stayed in place, so the script is reading my sprites as the correct sprites, and also the create new profile. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll create a new profile, and now I have a little piece of driftwood here as a custom menu. I'll hit OK, and now I have a new profile. I'll go ahead and delete that, discard it, and I have a little custom delete menu here. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes, I would like to delete. Let me delete these two. Okay, and also the functionality here where the color changes for the active profile. The active profile is going to be green. That is also working. So my sprites are sticking, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So in Photoshop, the sprites that the script uses, that the mobile menu starter kit uses, is a sprite that's sliced into multiple buttons, and all of those buttons have a specific name, and when the script runs, it calls for that particular sprite, and it calls for the name of the particular button. So these are the buttons or images that are the default for the profile menu, and what I did is I opened up the original PNG file in Photoshop, and I deleted the sprites that I was going to replace, and then I added my own sprites in there. So these skulls are something separate, but I replaced the default images with my own. And when I save this as a PNG and save over the original image, all the slices stay in place. The names stay in place of each of these different sliced buttons. Each one has that default name, and the script finds it. So that's how I solved that problem. Because what I had originally done is I had just saved my own sprites, named them whatever, something different, replaced the images in the game object with my own, and the script, when it ran, it just ignored it and put all the original sprites back. So so that's how I did that. Um, I'm going to show you also the menus, how I worked on these in Photoshop, and how I constructed these using layers in Photoshop. So this background is just a screenshot. It's used for positioning and to get a sense of what the menus are going to look like. But when I export these as PNGs, I turn this off, so it ends up with a transparent background. So this is just to help me get a sense of where to lay things out and position things on the image. So I'll show the profile menu. And again, when I export this as a PNG, I turn this background off, and then I go ahead and I go to export, and I use the Save for Web Legacy version, and make sure it's a PNG 24, and hit save. And I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to replace what I've got. But so here's the profiles menu, and the delete profile menu is another layer. So I kept the profiles layer with the sand background on, so I could see how to position this, how it would look nice positioned against it. And then when I constructed this, I turned that off, and then I went ahead and went to export, save for web, saved it as a PNG. Now I did the same thing for the that's the delete profile menu. Here's the create profile menu. So exporting that, turned off the profiles background, went to export, save for web. So but that's a sense of what everything looks like when it's this is in Photoshop. So that's how I've created a great majority of the well, I guess how I've created all of the graphics that I'm using. And as long as we're in here, I'll go ahead and just run through some of these other menus. Here's the options menu. Scores menu, info menu. So that concludes this report for this week. And for next week, I plan on continuing to work on skinning these menus. I had several technical issues that took a long time to solve, and I think I've solved most of them. So I'm going to hopefully make some more progress. I'd like to spend at least, well, I wouldn't like to spend more than another week on these menus, and then I need to start working on a game board for a new level. So that's what I'm planning on doing for the next week. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching.